Hello and welcome to another episode of Flying High with Flutter. I'm your host, Allenwyma, and today I am with a very special guest, Thomas Burkhart, who is, as I joked with him earlier, he's an OG in terms of programming and in Flutter. He is definitely one of the original Flutter GDEs, and he's the author of the GetIt package, which I think is a super fantastic package. I highly recommend it for people who are developing their Flutter apps. Why don't I go ahead and let you speak? Actually, before you speak, I want one last thing. If you guys can see on the video, I actually managed to hurt myself recently, so I'm a little bit out of commission. So if you guys have gone ahead and bought my course about Rust with Flutter, just know that I'm a little bit behind because I hurt myself, but I should be back in action within a month, I hope. And that's just my last announcement. So you guys may know things may be a little bit sluggish over here. That's because I'm still in recovery. Now, Thomas, back to you. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Thomas Burkhart. I live in Germany, in Bonn, and I'm in IT for almost 30 years now. So I've seen quite a lot. In between, I had some break where I worked as a professional magician, and then I got into mobile development. And after some frustration with Xamarin at this time, I finally found Flutter and really liked it. And one of the things that actually, when we, especially when we look at GetIt, I got into Flutter when it was just out of beta. So there was no provider, there was no other packages out there, not many packages out there. And I really struggled with the concept of the inherited widget. Actually, because I never really managed it at that time, that it updated my data when I changed something. Yeah. So I looked a little bit back what I was used to use when I was working with Xamarin in C#, and there was a very nice service locator called Splat from AnyBats, and I used streams a lot there with Rx. So the idea was then to say, okay, I ported more or less the API of Splat. In the meantime, it evolved a lot to include other stuff. And I just added some streams into my business objects and used the stream builder on the UI, and I was good to go. So I never touched any inherited widgets after that again, besides the ones from Flutter that are included in the framework, like themes or something like this. So that was the point how I got to GetIt. And that was also the point why I started to publish packages, because when I needed something for myself, I decided after some time, okay, why not share it with the public? And this worked quite well so far.
So when you're using streams, right, were you using some type of block pattern? Or I think you had a different type of pattern. That's what I remember. You were talking about your pattern.
Yes. Actually, at this time, when I started up, was really popular was Redux at this time. Then there was this talk from Google I/O, I think Philip was it, who talked about the block pattern. And but I really didn't like the block pattern, because the feeling that I have to push an object into a stream to trigger a method just did not feel right to me. And coming from Xamarin, where we have a command pattern that we use, I was looking, okay, can I use something like this also with Flutter? That I can have more or less a function-like object, a command, that I can assign to my event handlers, and that do everything for me. Yeah. So really this idea with the streams to communicate between UI to the business layer. I didn't like it. On the other direction, it's okay, because an UI can listen to streams and then rebuild. But down to the business layer, I did not really like it. And It's true. I pretty soon afterwards, I developed my own pattern, or my own architecture, which I called at this time RX VMS, which was stream based and was used the RX command package that I wrote, which is a stream based command. Today we have a newer version of this, which is called which is just called Flutter command, and this is way which uses completely value listenables instead of streams, because in my opinion they are way easier to handle in the UI than streams. But maybe we can get back to this a little bit later, how this works, because commands are extremely powerful and I would say pretty much underrated or undervalued, and they can completely replace your blocks while adding additional features. So we can go back to this in a moment. Sure. I don't know what would be the points. Would you say, okay, you're interested in when we talk about GetIt?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most interesting part is like, well, a big thing to me is I'm pretty big into testing, right? And what I like about Bloc is that it's very clear that I can see where are my blocks. And to me, I try to keep my blocks like where all the logic is, right? So I make a factory using GetIt, and all of the repositories where all the business logic is, I put those into like lazy singletons. And so they get created whenever I need to create my block, and they never get deconstructed until I guess the app is closed. This kind of way, right? So it's very, very clear for me, like kind of what's going on.
Yeah. Understand.
And so it makes things easy for like when I do widget testing, because I just make sure I have a block provider, and that kind of works, right? So if I'm going to be making testing using your style, I mean, it's easy for anybody to figure out, okay, I need to mock out this thing. So with provider, I could just put in my mock object. But with GetIt, it's quite different, right? Like, what would be your, I know you've talked about this in your docs, but it's not very clear for me, because you list like two different ways. Like, one is that you can use a scope. Another one is that you can also use a reset and just kind of rebuild your singletons, right? Now, does the reset and the scoping, does that work? Like if I have, say like a single file where I create all of my stuff, including initializing my GetIt singleton, and then does it also, and then like I start registering all my objects right away. Like, would I need to do that for every single test, or like is there like a before all I need to call, or like how would this kind of stuff work?
First of all, GetIt inside is it's a singleton itself, yeah. Now it depends a little bit on what sort of code you are testing. The moment you are testing asynchronous code, you might have noticed that if you run tests, that tests run in parallel partly. And this can get you into trouble. If you have only synchronous code that you are testing, you are totally fine doing a reset at the beginning of each test and register your new your objects that you want to use. Yeah. An alternative is indeed you could use scopes, but I think scopes are much more useful in the business logic. If I want to control object lifetime inside the business logic, so one of my typical use cases is it if I have, for example, if I want to switch between the state of a logged out user, of an anonymous user and a logged in user, for example, yeah, these are things where you can use scopes very nice, because if you push a new scope and register new objects, then you can get rid of all these objects by just popping the scope, yeah. So this is one of the things that where I see scopes. In GetIt, what I normally do is if I have the problem that I get into trouble with asynchronous code, you can create multiple instances of GetIt with create new instance, with the create new instance method. So in this case, I would create a new instance at the beginning of my test case, register my object, and then use it as normal. Yeah, this is if you run into any of such problems. The other way that is quite nice. I can show you. I have to share my screen for this. This is one of the things that you, for example, if it's not just unit testing, but if you have two modes, you can switch out implementations. For example, if I have from my app model, for example, if I have a mock implementation that maybe, for example, target some staging server or something like this, I can easily do this by switching out the implementation on startup, either with the mock implementation or the real implementation. Yeah, this is one of the ways if I want to change between if I want to test a whole mocked object. The other way that I use is this here. Actually, it's a little bit. I have to update this slide a little bit because nowadays with null safety, I would have to add a required here that I don't get into problem. But the general idea is that if I want to use, for example, this if I want to test this user manager, that it has this optional parameters here where I can pass in, for example, a mocked object while testing, and it then checks if no object is passed, get the one that is registered in GetIt. Yeah. So with this approach, I don't have to initialize. I don't have to register the user manager and the app model and database service in GetIt by testing, but I can just create an object user manager and pass in two mock objects, for example, while still when it's working on inside my app, I can just instantiate a user manager without passing anything, and it will automatically get the correct objects from the repository from the object repository. This is one of the patterns. Yep.
This one definitely makes sense to me. I can understand this part. But then the only thing I don't like about this one is it's kind of an implementation, kind of hidden thing. I don't know how to make it more kind of clear, but like I like it, but at the same time, it's kind of, I don't know. I want to say side effect, but not really a side effect. Do you know what I mean?
I guess you
it's
mean
more like
that
overriding, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. If you just see the interface here, you don't know, do I have to pass this or do I don't have to pass it? Yeah. With the I think with if you put if you have no required and we are on the and these are nullables, then it's more clear. But I know what you mean. It's typically I don't use it, but people who like to test the objects separately use it. And so I prefer normally to register my objects directly inside each unit test case, and then just reset or reset the whole GetIt. Yeah, you see this in. Wait, I have to. Here's I use in this case I use the setup function of the test cases of Flutter test, where I reset GetIt first, and then register the things that I want to test, for example, yeah, and then it's automatically done before every test that I execute.
But the only thing that I don't like about this one is like if you just wanted to reset a couple of things. That could be a little bit annoying. You know what I mean? Like if what I'm thinking about, if you could just override just a specific one, that would maybe be more better. I don't know. I mean, I'm listening to what you think, but this is also kind of clear too that you can very clear like, okay, reset from scratch. These are the ones I use. It's very clear which ones you're setting up. Maybe it's better that way. Like I suppose it's what you like more, right? Because this is your code.
No, not necessarily. For example, what would be also perfectly fine is to push a new scope at the beginning of a test and pop the scope at the end. Yeah. if you want to just override one of the existing ones. Yeah. So this is probably the I haven't used it in tests so far yet, but it's probably a very good way to do it. Yeah, because if we have a look at the here, if we look at scopes, for example, it is the way that I on the base scope. That is, if you don't haven't pushed any scope, then you register your objects like it. I do it here, and I have for the user, it's a user interface which has an implementing class and a user here, for example. And now, if I push a new scope, I register a new object user with a different implementation in this case. And from this on, if from anywhere in the code the user class is accessed, it will get the logged in user, because this one shadows the one below. And for all other classes, they are still accessible without any problems. Yeah. But when I pop this, it's just I'm back to before. So I could use this if I want to make sure that at the end of my tests that GetIt is again in the state that I want it to be.
Okay, so the popping is pretty clear. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it would be really cool if like you could make it scope, say like, okay, this part of my widget tree is using this kind of scope though, but you cannot because this is all outside of the, or you can.
Yeah, not really. But maybe at this point also this is a little bit of a question of philosophy, because in my opinion, scopes are much more useful in the business logic than make them completely dependent on the UI. Yeah. So one of the ways that I could do it is if I have a stateful widget that I push a new scope at the or better, I call a function in the business layer that pushes a new scope, and in the dispose function I pop the scope again. Yeah. So I can bind it to a widget manually without problems. But in my opinion, it's far more interesting to have than on the business layer side, because as in this example, so we have we log in a user, for example. Okay. Now we have are in a different state on the business level, and this is completely independent of any widgets above, because the login state should not be necessarily directly coupled to a widget. And now if this would be if this here would be what do we call it, a shopping application, then we could, for example, if the user inserts the first item into a shopping cart, I push another scope with the shopping cart in it, which allows me, if the user does not wants to clear his shopping cart, I just have to clear the scope, and you can provide a dispose function to any either to a scope, or even when you register an object, you can give them a dispose function that is called when it's removed. Yeah. So you are extremely powerful if you want to control what objects are currently accessible over the scopes with the overriding. There is even a possibility that if your objects implement a certain interface, they get notified when they are shadowed by another object, or when the shadow is removed. Yeah, so that they can automatically care themselves if the state of the application has changed.
Okay, but you'd have to have a scope in order to do the shadowing, right? You cannot just shadow directly. Am I right?
Actually, the moment you have first to push the scope, because otherwise, how would I remove the shadow? I would say, I can if you want to replace an object, you can do this inside GetIt, but it's different. But then you lose the state of the shadowed object. Yeah. So if you want to have it more automated, and bound to a widget, if you use the my GetIt mixin package, it adds a method to the widgets which is called push scope, which will push a new scope and automatically pops it when the widget goes out of scope. Yeah. So you don't have to care about this manually. For this is the GetIt mixin then a very nice and helpful tool.
Yeah, definitely. I remember seeing GetIt mixin, but I just kind of ignored it. I felt like it was something I didn't really need. And I'm sure you've heard that before. But
yep.
One of the first things that you mentioned to me as soon as I brought you into this podcast is that you were like, hey, have you used this before? And I'm like, no. Sorry to tell you I haven't used it. Like maybe, why don't we take some time to talk about it, right? Because maybe it's misunderstood and not really, people don't really look at it for a certain reason, right? So why did you make it, and why should I even consider to use it if it is already working for me?
Yeah. Actually, I didn't use it, but actually I did not think about it for a long time. But then users asked me, hey, couldn't you add some state management functionality to GetIt, like Provider offers it? And so I thought about it, and I'm totally honest in this. I took some inspiration from the way Provider is implemented. I took some inspiration how Flutter hooks is implemented, but made it a little bit more straightforward, in my opinion. And this is in short, the GetIt mixin allows you to observe objects that are registered inside GetIt from the UI. Yeah. So you said before, you told me before, you are using Provider additionally in combination with GetIt, yeah, because so you can access observe your objects in the UI with Provider. So with the GetIt mixin, you can do the whole thing with GetIt, and I will go and I will show you here. We have here some examples of listenable objects, I would say. We have here a value notifier as a global variable, for example. Then we have a model class that exchanges change notifier, because if you look here, the country the country property calls notify listeners if it is changed, for example. Then we have directly a value notifier as a property in here, or a nested object. We have a stream in here, and we have a future in here. All things that you could typically want to observe in a UI. Yeah. So, with the mixin, this looks like this. We have this is a little bit an overkill example because we do everything in here, but it shows how it is used. So for a stateless widget, I mix in the GetIt mixin, and from this on, I get several methods that I can access within the widget. For example, here, if I want to only get a value out of GetIt, I can just call the get method. It's just a shorthand of getit.i.get, but it's just a nice thing. More interesting is if I have the I have registered also a value notifier string. I have this registered inside GetIt, yeah? Okay, this value notifier. So I can here with the watch function. The watch function is like the get. That means, as we are used to, we pass in as a generic type the type of the stored object that I want, yeah, and plus the value that I expect to receive. And if I do this, watch will get the current value of this object, and after this, it will trigger a rebuild of the widget. So whenever this changes, this value notify change, the whole widget will rebuild, which means I can normally, if I have this column down here, I would need to use some animated builder to observe this value notifier, yeah, or the value listenable builder. It's now I would use the value listenable builder, and I don't need any builders in here, yeah. The same. If I have, we have seen the model class change notifier. If I have such a situation, I can use the watchOnly method. WatchOnly watches one property inside an object that implements value the change notifier, and it will only rebuild the widget if this property has changed. Yeah, and watchX actually is a way to directly observe value listenables that are properties, like here the name property, and this is probably the most used one that I can use to do this. And which watchX only has an additional selection method. With that, you can access inside the object that you access here. You can access further down into the into nested property. So this makes it in the easiest case. I will show you later in a little bit of code. You just use the watchX and you are done. So I don't have to use any builders at all, because the same thing works with streams. If I want to watch a stream, I use the watch stream or an watch future, and I can just use this local variables then inside my widget tree. The only restriction is you have to do this at the beginning of your build functions, and you are not allowed to use any conditional in this area, because this is like the same mechanism that hooks use. The watch statements have always to be executed in the same sequence, in the same ordering.
Okay. This is a lot of stuff at once I'm still trying to follow. The one thing that kind of threw me off is the watchX and watchX and watch. Yeah, it gets a little bit confusing.
The best thing, actually, I agree with you. These are just different ways depending on where the object is that you want to watch. Yeah. The most used, as I said, is the watchX probably. Yeah. That you will use. That you will use if you want to observe a property in your model that is itself a value listenable.
Okay. So between watchOnly and watchX, the difference is that if the property is a value listenable, then you want to use watchX. If it's just a value, then you would use watchOnly. Exactly.
But this requires that model implements change notify. Yeah. If it doesn't do this, this would not work. Yeah. And so this is really one of the things. There are situations where this is appropriate, but personally, I use in my business objects normally always value notifiers. So watchX is the one that I use most often use. Yeah. And if you see this here, this is actually quite interesting. What we have, what we pass in to watchX, as the same with watchOnly, is an accessor function. Yeah. So this function is executed every time watchX is called here, and returns the actual property that I want to watch, which even allows me some more flexibility, because this function here is not. It even could return me different properties depending on some other circumstances. Yeah, when it updates. So it's very flexible, and this is the way I use the most of the time. So watchX and watchStream or watchFuture are very handy. Especially watchStream and watchFuture is very nice, because if you look here, we are still in a stateless widget. Yeah. So normally, if I want to observe a stream, and it's not just if I don't just want to use a stream builder, I always have to use a stateful widget where I can subscribe to the stream, start listening on the stream in the on init, and then I dispose the stream again. This is all done completely automatically for you here. Yeah, it even works. You can even do it. You can even register handlers with this. Yeah, if I want not to display depending on some listenable, I can use the register handler function. Again, they have to be done in the beginning of the build function. Here, the first as an example for value listenable, but the same for streams or futures. For example, to show a dialog or in this case for the future handler to navigate somewhere else. And I never have to care about any disposing of streams or futures it is done completely automatically for me.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting. I could definitely see where you got the idea from, I think, the hooks or the consumer widget package.
Exactly.
Yeah. The one thing I don't like about this is that you definitely have to learn these things, right? If you're a beginner to Flutter and you see this, it's going to blow your mind a little bit. You're going to have to actually take a look at what is this GetIt mix in, and it'll take you some time to kind of catch up.
Actually, it's not so much different than other packages. For example, if you start with provider, you have a lot of providers that you have to learn. Yeah. I had this discussion recently, and we finally came to the point that it's really a little bit a different approach in that as GetIt itself, but also the GetIt mixin, have a lot of separate functions for different scenarios where provider uses or Riverpod uses an adapter object, the provider objects, the different ones to switch between different scenarios. Yeah. So this is really one of the things. Might be a little bit different philosophy. What I like about this approach is that in my IDE I can just hit dot and see all the functions that this object gives me. Yeah. So I don't have to, for example, with provider, I really have to learn which providers are there. Here I can always see them from in the IDE if I just hit a dot. Yeah. So, and if you start with just some of them, it's not that complex. I show you this in the let's go back to the Visual Studio here. Actually, there is another mixin in the mixin package for stateful widgets, which you have to use if you need a stateful widget. In this case, you have to add a mixin into the widget and into the state, but everything else stays the same. And here, for example, I use the register handler because I want to react on errors. Thrown exceptions here is an value listenable or a value notifier. And I do this at the beginning to register a dialog that is displayed. And then I have here 3 separate watchX where I watch different properties of my weather manager object. Yeah. And after this, I can use this just use these variables. So the whole widget tree here looks pretty clean. I don't have otherwise I would have 3 different builders inside here. Yeah. And in the list view to Dart, for example, this actually even has only one watchX at the beginning because which gets the current data for the list view that I want to use. And that's all. I'm done. So it's a very simple approach, actually. It might be a little bit overwhelming because you have several options, but in principle, it's a very direct and very simple approach.
Yeah. Okay. I can definitely see this. The one thing that really reminded me, or the one thing I did like about Riverpod is that when you have like async value, right, you have to actually handle all the different cases. I actually quite like that style where it's like you force the user of that library. Have you ever played around with Riverpod? Because you're looking a little bit confused.
I have looked at it. You mean that you don't have to bother with snapshot objects, that you get a clean async return object.
Well, what you get is you get this thing called async value, which actually has 3 different states. You have like when the data's there, when it's loading, and when it's error. And you actually have to handle all 3 states. And what I like about that is it kind of reminds me of languages that have a union type like Elm or Rust, where you actually have to handle everything. And I like that because if you have when you start programming for a while, like you come to realize that you have to handle everything because things happen. And that's why I like Riverpod. I like that one part at least.
Actually, I like
yours
it.
Yours doesn't have this style though, right?
No. Yes, I like it, and I don't like it at the same time. Let me explain why. It's the same why I have problems with the freeze package, for example. Because if you look at code that uses the freeze or the Riverpod packages, it does not look like normal Dart anymore. And for me, as long as Dart does not have these features embedded inside the language, I don't really feel comfortable with turning my Dart code looking like it has some features that not every Dart programmer is used to. So this is one of the points. The other thing is, and there we get quite interesting again. You see here, I use, or actually this in the sample application, I use another package in here from me, which is the Flutter command package. And a Flutter command is basically, I have to switch over to the good. So a command, because this is why you mentioned the loading state, for example. If you use commands, you don't have to deal with asynchronous results at all anymore, I would say, because a command object wraps any function. It can be an async function, it can be a normal function, and can be used as a normal function because it's a callable class. So you can just assign it to any event handler. Like here, for example, the onTextChange command. It's just, for example, my manager onSearchChange command. And and if you call the command, the embedded function inside will be executed. Okay. So, and a command itself implements the value listenable of key result. So you can listen on a command itself for the result of the embedded function. And if it's an async function, the command handles everything inside. It checks if there was an error. It makes sure that you get informed about the loading state, because there are 2 more properties which are value notifiers. One is executing, and one is the thrown exception. So the command takes care about if anything happens inside the wrap function. Your app does not crash. If it's an exception, it will be published on this listenable, so you can easily listen to this to show a dialog, for example, or to do something else. And it is executing, which you can listen to show a loading spinner, for example, or not. And if you need all these states in one object to deal with. Yeah, it has actually another value notifier called results, which returns a combined object which has the result value, the executing state, and the error state wrapped in one nice object. Yeah. So if I want to use, if I need them all together, or if I want to listen from different places separately on the command. And then it gets, that's the last point that makes it powerful. It has an incoming, you can, when you create a command, you can pass in value listenable restrictions. And depending if this value, if this variable that you pass in there changes from true to false, the whole command is locked. The command can not longer be executed. And on the other side, I have here an can execute value notifier, which is more or less turns false the moment is executing turns true, and the other way around. Now you might ask, why do I need a separate listenable for the can execute state? Because can execute actually is an and expression between the is currently not is executing. Sorry, this is not and the restriction. So even if the command is not running, if restriction turns false, can execute turns false. Yeah. If this is true and I execute the command, then this turns false. So for example, I can use this here to disable any UI element that I have up there. To make it a little bit more clear, I have a small animation here that shows what you will see. So we have here this is the pure result of the wrap function up here. This here is the wrapped the combined result, and here the separate points. And now, if I press the button here, command is executed. So wait. So we have here the asynchronous call is stated, and we had here two values that updated UI. And it does this until the result comes back. And we have this. So my whole UI reacts on events, yeah, on things that happens on the command layer.
Okay. So this is an audio podcast, and I just want to be kind of clear what's going on. So you have a really, really cool animation where you have your command, right? You have your Flutter command, and you have different properties.
Yep.
And you have a button that's hooked up to can execute. So if can execute is true, I suppose, then update is then selectable.
Yep.
And also you have is executing, which is basically showing a spinner if it's executing.
Yep.
And if there's results, then that will be shown. And in this case, you have a pentagon, looks like.
Yep.
A pentagon.
Yep.
And it's kind of cool. So you pressed on update button, which then would flip can execute to obviously false, and is executing to true, which would show a spinner. And of course, the button will not be executable. And then that would also trigger the REST service. So it's also connected to a REST service, which would then do the asynchronous work. And once the REST service comes back with a response to the command, then your is executing will be turned to false. You'll have a result there that you didn't have before. And then the can execute will then be set to true, which would then enable your button again.
Exactly.
So that's interesting. So I find it quite interesting because it seems like when I look at what you have, it's like you're making things very, very explicit. So I would probably do like I said before, we had the show, it's like I usually use Bloc. So I would have one state which I would kind of read what's going on. But here, instead of having multiple listenable properties that change, and you're very specific that this is about can I execute or not? Is it executing or not? This kind of thing. I mean, it could be that it is executing, but it's also can be executionable. In fact, that like if you can send multiple counter events, maybe across a wire, maybe that would be a case.
No, actually,
so this is actually blocking.
Actually, a command blocks multiple invocations, so that's not is not possible. And it has it's not just that I'm very explicit. The thing is that I can now by using this here, I can react on certain situations from different places in my widget tree. Yeah. So I can, for example, is executing. I can do on a higher up level in the widget tree than, for example, for the results. Yeah. So if you and all this here, all these properties, this properties is executing, and also the result itself are all value listenables. Yeah. And now, if we add to this my package functional listeners, which gives you Rx-like methods to combine value listenables together, then you can imagine, for example, that you combine the is executing properties of several commands into one property to handle the spinner for all of the commands, and you don't have to do this otherwise. And if we look over here, yeah, it's a little bit sad that we are. It's a little bit difficult to explain only for the audio side, but if we look here, for example, in the this is a little bit. This is more or less a typical example of what you can do with commands. Yeah, here we create several commands that the UI will listen to. But for example, there is in this app, there is in the real app, there's a little switch which should enable or disable a button. Yeah, and this one is connected to the set execution state command here. Now, the update weather command, this is the one that is connected to the button, to the update button, gets as a restriction passed in the set execution state command. So I link I link these two together in a declarative way, and just by this, it's ensured that if the switch that is connected here will automatically change the state of the button in the UI. Yeah, and things like this make us allows you to put a lot of logic directly in a declarative way. What happens? Yeah, so. And as all the parts of commands are value listables, you can then easily observe them using the watchX function of the GetIt mixin. So if we go back to the homepage here, we see that in the weather manager, we have the different commands here, the update weather command, the update weather command, and here with watchX we observe the is executing property of this command, and the button enabled variable we watch the can executing property of this, and the switch value should reflect. We observe the set execution state command that is connected to the button, and this leads to that we have down here in the UI I have no builders for anything like this. But for example, here the switch is directly connected to this execution state command just by assigning them. Yeah. Or the update beta command. This is a little bit ugly, but this is because of a problem with Dart currently, that I have to do this, that I have to use the call explicit, the call function here. It's because otherwise Dart does not recognize that this is a callable function. That's the problem, actually, but only specifically in this situation. So I can just observe here all the properties and then use them in the widget tree. And if we look at the list view, for example, here we see with watchX, I directly watch the command itself, which means I will get the result of the rep function. Yeah. And it is, once you have understood it, it is you start to see what possibilities you have, especially then when you can combine and link together commands using this Rx-like functions.
So we do have a question in the audience, which is always good to have. So cool. Thomas, which I don't think is you, Thomas says, he asks, is there a more elegant way to handle exceptions using Flutter command? Passing null as an initial value and then having to filter it out using functional listeners seems really counterintuitive.
Honestly, I'm a little bit surprised what he is doing. It's true. We have the thing is we have to we have to pass an initial value to when I create a command, because it's a value listenable, which needs an initial value. But normally, you don't have to filter out any exceptions, because you just let the exception, throw. And then it will, then you can observe it on the thrown exception property. So you will never get this value on the value side of the command.
So maybe he's not using it as you intended, which could be a problem.
That's possible. The best thing is, he should raise if he could raise an issue on the Flutter command repo with a short example what he is doing. I will reply to this.
Sure, I'm just going to type out to him in the chat to make sure he raises the issue.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, it's I think because I do remember you have the thrown exception, which would only have a value there if you have something thrown.
Exactly.
So maybe something wasn't clear to him.
Yep, that's possible.
When you do a thrown exception, I mean, that could basically, you can actually short circuit your command, or can you not? Like, let's say like you have some kind of beta feature and for some reason it's thrown an exception. Can you just cut off that command and then say it cannot execute anymore? Or would you just have to always say, okay, reset this to can execute and just try again?
You mean after the first time it should no longer be usable?
Yeah, because I can imagine like there could be a time where you want to be able to do something, and if it ever fails, you don't want them to do it again.
It's actually pretty easy. The only thing that how I would do this is that I add inside my I call them managers, my business objects where the commands live. I add some new value notifier and initialize it using functional listeners, where I use the map function that you know from lists or so, to map the thrown exception from the command that I want to make sure it does not happen to a bool false true. Yeah. So when the exception is thrown, this one will switch to false, and I use this this property as a restriction of the command that I want to observe. And then it will, from this on, it will be blocked and will not be able to be executed again, unless I change the value manually.
Okay, that's pretty flexible.
It is really and again, this I have to be very honest here. The idea how this with the API of this command, is also not from me initially. It comes from the reactive command from the framework Reactive UI on .NET, and is used by a lot of people and a lot of projects in this way. So it is a proven concept.
Who would have known that .NET has good ideas?
Yeah,
.NET always gets kind of.
Yeah, actually, did you know that RX is actually a .NET invention?
This I did not know, because I always hear about RX from JavaScript, not really from .NET.
But it's a Microsoft invention. The thing is, never really took off this much on the .NET, in the .NET world, yeah. But the Java people looked at it and thought, oh, this looks nice. Let's port it to Java and to JavaScript, and they use it much more.
So Thomas also replied with another question: can we please also have a demonstration of how to use MockCommand for tests?
MockCommand. Okay. A demonstration is a good question, but I can explain you how it works. The MockCommand, yeah. The MockCommand is actually, it works in a way that you have complete control over the command, yeah. So in your test, I go to the I have to go into the repository of Flutter command, and I can show you a test that uses it. And I can talk easier with this.
While you're doing that, we actually just got a comment from Raphael saying that after some years of blinded usage of miraculous state management solutions, we're coming back to the basics. I like the approach. For me, it seems good piece for scalable app architecture. Yep.
Actually, that's why the RX VMS, which I call my whole architecture, is the idea is very straightforward. Yeah, should be simple. It should be easy to understand. It should be discoverable from the UI. For example, this was one of my biggest problems with Redux. I tried to understand what it's doing from the UI, but just by hitting go to definition from UI, I was never able to go to the code that really was executed, because there are some abstract classes in between, and there are some dispatching. So it was not easy to understand, and this I want to prevent. So Flutter command test. So let's see here. I create a command with a mock command with an additional value. And the thing is, as this is a command, if you use the mock command instead at a place where you have your own command, to make them that they are compatible, that you can assign them to each other, it's only important that the types match, yeah, because both are commands. So if I use the way that I showed before with GetIt to switch out a mock object, a mock manager to the real manager, then I just use mock commands at every place where I use the real commands in the real object in the real object. So now a mock command I created, and the idea is that I can then use the queueResult function on the mock command to queue a result that this command will emit the next time I call execute on the command. Yeah. So I can specify very, very clearly how should this command behave if I want to test the rest of the logic that uses this command. Yeah. So I can queue them. I can the other way is I can use the start execution function and directly pass a parameter like I would with a real command. This will trigger automatically the is executing and the can execute like you would expect in a normal command. So it is just a way how you can simulate a real command and have complete control over it, how you expect the command will behave, and then test how the rest of your logic works. I hope this helped a little bit.
Yeah, for me, it definitely makes sense. I mean, you want to be able to have predictable replies without actually doing something, so you can kind of do a little bit more UI testing. That's what I would use it for.
But the big difference to using, for example, Mockito or so is that in this case you still get the internal logic for the, for example, for the errors for busy, etc. Which if I want to do unit tests for commands, I would use the MockCommand and not Mockito normally, probably.
I moved on from Mockito. I'm using Mocktail now. I'm more of a fan of Mocktail than Mockito nowadays.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. But they're pretty similar. I mean, like I would just mock out my repository with what I'm expecting to reply. And I also like that, like I can return a future and then I could check something, make sure that the loading state's there, and then finally complete my future with a completer. That makes it very clear for me. Yeah, Thomas, I want to say, like, you're a pretty popular guy. I think this is probably the most amount of questions we've had on the show. Maybe we need to have another session soon, and maybe promote a little bit more, get some more people.
We can do actually maybe just if people send some questions that they want to have more look. But I think I'm not sure how good we can deal with this all just on a podcast level, I would say, because you have to look at code in many cases.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And I think, maybe it would be nice to actually do like because these kind of, I mean, your tools, I mean, some of them are really popular, like GetIt, but some of them are not known, GetIt mixin, or even this Flutter command, because it's just being overshadowed by other things.
Yes.
So maybe it would be good to even work together and try to maybe build an app using your tools and see how it actually works, so people actually understand.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, MockCommand. Okay, this is how you can use it.
Would be amazing.
I think that would be quite interesting.
And I totally agree. It's really a little bit sad that because of that Flutter named provider as the recommended solution, for example, every other solution got very much into the shadow, and it's not people don't explore it. And the other thing is that compared to the monster package getX, which is often confused with GetIt, but it's not GetIt, I prefer I call it the Lego approach. So many small parts that you can put together instead of one big one. The downside is of this that people that know GetIt don't automatically know that there are other bricks that you can add on to get a more powerful solution. So I would really enjoy if we could do this together and make it in a streaming session.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. I think that would be great. Maybe we can talk about scheduling in the future. What was I going to say? We also got another comment from Hassan, who said, "Unfortunately, GetIt is not a Flutter favorite yet."
Yes,
maybe we need to do something about that. This is
also. I'm very sorry that this is like this. I discussed this with Chris Sells, and Chris said they made a decision that no new state management solution will get a Flutter favorite because there are already so many, which I find a little bit disappointing, or quite disappointing, because GetIt is way older than all the newer stuff. So, but true, it should all the whole RVMS packages. So GetIt mixin, Flutter command, and functional listeners, they all should be favorites, but so far not. Maybe write an email to Chris Sells and request it.
This is like write your congressperson, right, and complain, and hopefully something will happen.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Thomas also asked, between CommandBuilder, ValueListenableBuilder, and GetIt mixin, is there one recommended way to build widgets using Flutter command?
I think it depends on how your whole architecture looks like, because you can use a command completely without any problems with Riverpod or with provider. Yeah, so nobody hinders you to use a command in an object that is registered inside Riverpod. And in this case, you probably would not use a GetIt mixin, yeah? Then the command builder is probably a good approach. And because it offers a lot of it's comfortable in that it also offers different builders for the different states that a command can have. Or you can go for the value listenable builder and do everything yourself. Yeah. So normally I would say if you use GetIt, then use the GetIt mixin, because in my opinion, widget trees look much nicer without builders in it. And if you use some other locator, then use the use a command builder.
Okay. And with that, unfortunately, I need to kind of cut this off. I really appreciate all the questions, and I'm very happy that we got a lot of questions. That's the reason why I want to make this part live, is because I want people to also ask questions, because you can see people don't always give a chance to talk with you. But you seem pretty easygoing and easy to talk with, and easy to get a hold of. So I think doing another session together that's live. Sorry.
And actually, people can always find me almost always find me on Twitter. So, and if they have questions that are or to my packages, just ping me, just tag me in a question, and I'm happy to reply. I prefer to do it in on the public feed and not in private messages, so other people can also learn. But I'm always happy to help. Yeah. And I would really, it would be amazing if we can have another session. Okay.
Oh, definitely open. Thomas is your most valued fan. So he asks, can we please have createFromStream method to handle streams?
I was already expecting that it's him. He asked me this before. I have to make, I know what he is coming from, but I have to think about what's the best way to do it.
Okay. Yep. So it looks like we can have it, but he has to get the final details. Yep. Okay, Thomas, again, great to have you on. We can chat over Twitter and figure out something, and then maybe let's try to promote a little bit more, because we didn't promote this one so much, I think. And maybe we'll have more people kind of watching in and asking questions about what about this, what about that. That could be quite exciting, I think. So let's catch up over Twitter. Again, thank you for your time. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know, and I also need a little bit of a break. It's been a long day over here, and as you can see, I'm still recovering. For people who can't see, I cut my fingers over the weekend. So thank you so much for your time, and let's catch up over Twitter.
Okay, bye-bye.